this, a lie detector test would be just, I would be fine with that.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. This is part 2 of our analysis. Let's dive right into the rest of Knox's email. It is quite long. There might be a part 4 even to this analysis. It was typed at Celeste's apartment at around 3 in the morning, barely a day after the murder. So you would imagine all the aspects would still be fresh in her mind, certainly fresher than when she wrote that 4-page note. She sent it in a group format to her friends and family. Continuing where we left off, after lunch I began to play guitar with Raphael, and Meredith came out of her room and went to the door. Now, if you know the details of Knox's story, you know that Knox's guitar playing was one of the things that really annoyed Meredith. She couldn't play guitar then, she was learning to play, and sometimes this happened when the other girls in the house were trying to watch television. Hold on, you may say. What's my source for this outlandish and ridiculous claim? Well, how about Amanda's housemate, FILOMENA Romanelli? This is what she said about Knox when she testified. Romanelli testified for the first time in court Saturday, saying that Knox and Kercher had been close initially, in part because they both spoke English. And this is according to an article from NBC News dated February 7, 2009. They had interests in common. At the beginning, they surely had a good relationship. There was no reason not to get along, said Romanelli, who is Italian. Along the way, they didn't really go separate ways, but they developed personal interests that they pursued individually, she said. Now, have you ever heard Amanda Knox admit that her and Meredith drifted apart? Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Have you seen that I've written 5 books on this case? If you're curious about it, I'll put links to them in the description. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, interesting, perhaps you learned something, please hit the thanks button and let's get started. So going back to the article, quote, while Kercher was dedicated to her studies, Knox was someone with quite a lot of interests, Romanelli said. She liked music, sports, yoga, languages. Sometimes she had unusual attitudes, like she would start doing yoga while we were speaking, or she would play guitar while we were watching TV. Now, there's quite a lot to unpack there. It seems that Kercher was dedicated to her studies, whereas Romanelli doesn't say the same about Knox. And there's a lot to go into in terms of that. We're not going to go into that here, but it's a fact that Kercher was kind of enrolled in she was an Erasmus scholar, and she was doing a far more elaborate course than Knox, which meant that Knox had a lot more free time, which meant that Knox could be, I guess, annoying to other students who had less free time. Think about that kind of mismatch. One student doing just a language course and another one doing sort of a more elaborate course with many other subjects. Now, I've heard many Knox apologists repeat the PR line that Knox was simply goofy and misunderstood. I think it's one thing to be a little odd, but plonking oneself down on the floor to do yoga or playing guitar when I say playing guitar, you don't actually know how to play guitar, so you're sort of strumming, trying to figure it out while everyone else is watching TV. Is that a question of just lacking in social graces, or is it rude? Naturally, Knox doesn't acknowledge any of this in her email. The fact that she was annoying Meredith, or that Meredith was annoyed in the lead up to her murder. Now, going back to Knox's email, she said bye and left for the day. It was the last time I saw her alive. Now, prepare to have your mind blown regarding a potential insight in this case. It might be something you've never heard before or known about. In Philomena's testimony, the very first thing she mentions when listing Knox's likes is music. And something interesting that was retrieved from Solicito's laptop was a bunch of very American-seeming and perhaps even Seattle vibe tunes, songs like Stealing Fat, the soundtrack of, one of the soundtracks of Fight Club, Breed, Come As You Are, In Bloom, Lithium, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Little by Little, Don't Look Back in Anger. All of these songs were played early on the morning of the 2nd of November. So the morning that Meredith's body was found. Guess what time? 5:44:45. This is the time these songs were played. 5:46, 5:49, 5:52, 5:57, 6:06, all the way up to 6:18. And remember that time. Now, in terms of Knox's claim that the last time she saw Meredith alive was the afternoon of November 1st, a Thursday, what's also possible, at least in my opinion, is that Knox returned to the villa that night to watch the MTV Europe Awards in 2007. They were broadcast on the night of November 1st. They were held in Munich, Germany, and Knox had a German grandmother, Dorothy Kraft Nager, and a German cousin whom she'd stayed with before heading to Perugia. Her grandmother also frequently sent Knox money. It's likely these relatives may have informed Knox of these awards if Knox didn't already know about them. We also know that Meredith had gone to watch a movie with friends on the afternoon going into the night of November 1st, but returned home alone to watch the awards. Very likely Meredith expected the home to be empty. Instead, what if she found Knox in the house? Who knows? Perhaps if she did leave Solicitor at some point, perhaps she was at home flirting or cheating on Solicitor with Rudy. We know Rudy had said that he fancied her and he had partied at the villa before. If true, then the music awards may have brought the two young women together on the night of the murder. In any event, we need to think critically about other possibilities when Knox Breesley claims in her email, "It was the last time I saw her alive." After a little while of playing guitar, and this is going back to her email, me and Raphael went to his house to watch movies and after to eat dinner and generally spend the evening and night indoors. Now, Knox makes no mention of the music awards, and strangely, she does the exact same thing with Raffaele that Meredith is doing with her friends, watching a movie. Now, note what Philomena had said. They developed personal interests that they pursued individually. She went on to write, "We didn't go out. The next morning I woke up around 10:30, and after grabbing my things, I left Raphael's apartment and walked the 5-minute walk back to my house to once again take a shower and grab a change of clothes." Now, this playlist that was playing on a quick player program, which is something that was often used at that time, it was on Raphael's laptop, but it was a bunch of American songs. That seems to at least indicate that somebody was listening to those songs at between 5:45 in the morning and about 6:15, so for about half an hour. Now, who is that more likely to be? In his book Honor Bound, Celeste wrote that one of the things that annoyed him about Amanda was that she would wake up quite early. At location 286 in Honor Bound, Raphael writes, "Amanda tended to be up at 5 o'clock every morning." Well, that would certainly coincide with the playing of that playlist. Anyway, the point is, Knox says that she woke up at 10:30 on the morning that Meredith's body was discovered. She says that she went back to her house to again take a shower and grab a change of clothes. Now, Knox and Meredith have been going out night after night, and yet when she has the night off from work on a holiday weekend, remember she's a student in a student town, she apparently doesn't go out at all. She sleeps late, she says, but someone else tells a different story. In the 11th hearing of a trial expected to last through the summer, store owner Marco Quintavalle testified that he saw a young woman he later recognized as Amanda Knox enter his store at about 7:45 a.m. That's around about an hour after that playlist stops playing, and that's on November 2nd, 2007. The defense questioned his account, asking why it had taken him a year to come forward with his story, even though police had questioned him in the days after the murder. Now, that is a fair criticism, and remember, at the end of the day, Knox was ultimately acquitted. It's because of niggles like this that evidence was ultimately dismissed, along with alleged witness statements. But just out of curiosity, what did the young woman want? What did she want to buy in Marco Quintavalle's shop first thing Friday morning? According to the article, Quintavalle told prosecutor Giuliano Mignini that a young woman with remarkable blue eyes and a face so pale that he was struck by it entered his store just as it opened that day. She was wearing jeans, a grey jacket and a hat, he said. She went to the upper level of the store, which is just down the road from Celeste's house, without returning his greeting, Quintavalle said, and left shortly thereafter, heading down the street in the direction of the house where Kercher was killed. Quintavalle said he did not see if she had purchased anything because he was not at the cash register. When newspapers published photographs of Amanda Knox after she was arrested 4 days later, Quintavalle said he recognized her as the young woman who had entered his shop. In terms of her own story dealing with this part of the timeline, Knox admits that what she was doing first thing Friday morning was cleaning and mopping. So is it possible, if it was her at the store, that she bought bleach or cleaning materials? Celeste's apartment, according to some reports, smelled strongly of bleach when officers arrived to question him. But here's the part that's weird. Knox, so far in her story, doesn't seem to have any difficulty with her memory and seems very clear on exactly what time she arrived home. And yet in her 4-page note she said she was confused, never looked at the clock, and was generally unsure of the time. In terms of the events of November 1st, in her email, not written under any duress, Knox also doesn't mention anything about a text, doesn't mention Patrick, doesn't make any reference to not working that night. She also contradicts what she said in the note about going home. Now, she is not only at Celeste's home, but indoors the entire time. She goes on to write, walk back to my house to once again take a shower and grab a change of clothes. The other strange thing is that Knox feels she needs to go home to shower a second time and also needs to go home to get clothes. If she went to Celeste's to spend the weekend, which she ultimately does, why not take a change of clothes and why not shower there? In effect, Knox's story is that she's not home, but she is home. Let's review the narrative that she's laid down so far for a second. She leaves home during the murder, but comes back the morning after. To understand what we're talking about, there is no one else in the villa, a villa which sleeps 8, 4 upstairs and 4 downstairs, the entire time, except for Meredith. Knox is also there, but as I say, she's there in the afternoon, not there when the murder happens that night, and then back there again for no good reason the next morning. And what's she doing with her free time on a holiday weekend? Well, she writes, I also needed to grab a mop because after dinner, Raffaele had spilled a lot of water on the floor of his kitchen by accident and didn't have a mop to clean it up. So here we have her and Raffaele cleaning up. It's an operation that Knox volunteers involves, quote, a lot of water, unquote. FILOMENA also suggests a load of washing was done that morning in the villa. And again, compare the details in her email to her 4-page note written from jail. Here, there is no reference to fish blood on Raffaele's hand. I'm not going to take it further than that. We will continue this analysis in part 3, where Knox describes herself investigating the crime scene in great details, where she arrives home, what she sees, and what she does. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.